you busy to depart by a certain time, or we better wait? Most of your time for CCAST, or you do some other study and research somewhere?
No, I just started at the CCAST right now.
So are you in a status of graduate student, or you are just a
I
employee?
just started at the CCAST.
Interesting. So it's a temporary solution, or it's like major career plan?
It's temporary. I've had a few job offers recently, so I'll probably still be in the area, but I won't be able to go to the CCAST.
Okay. We recognize some places.
May I sit there?
If Russell allows. So we do have a special guest today, Russell Hoffman. He plays an important role at local supercomputer cluster, and since part of our cross activity can be facilitated by this supercomputer, Russell will make. He kind of agreed to make a little introduction how to open accounts, how to run Gaussian jobs, and maybe he will have some additional suggestions how attendees of this class can benefit from CCAST facility.
So we don't need to download the MobileCast.
Please download MobileXterm, open it, log into Photon cluster, so the guest lecture will complete in, I think, about 20 minutes, and then we will do as usual.
Okay, floor is yours. Hello everyone, I'm Russell Hoffman. I'm from the Center for Computationally Assisted Science and Technology here at NDSU. We're a high-performance computing facility that facilitates research at NDSU, and our resources are available not only to PIs and researchers, but actually to all students attending NDSU. We have one major cluster, and that's the Thunder cluster, which right now has 128 nodes, in excess of 300 or 3,600 cores. 2 GPU nodes, one of them is currently publicly available, and a number of queues for general usage. Some are restricted to research groups that own allocations on our machines. The vast majority of software we have installed, which we have over 150 software packages on our system, are available for everyone to use. That includes Gaussian, which we'll be going over in a little bit. I'm a staff member at the CCAST. We also have 4 other full-time employees: our director, Dane Sko, our 2 system administrators, Nick and CG, who if you ever email support at ccast.ndsu.edu, you'll get an email back from them, and then our research facilitator, Han Kwang. So as I was saying, we kind of facilitate computational research at NDSU. So in addition to providing hardware and software, we also offer kind of consulting and tech support type services. If your research group wants to do computational research and you want to have your own dedicated hardware, we can work with you in your grant writing process so that you can get hardware, have it installed on our machine, and then restricted to only your group's usage, or help you plan other advanced computing strategies in your proposals. And probably one of the biggest things that we've been doing that reaches the students is for the past year and a half, we've been doing a training program that runs each semester. It's every Thursday. And it starts at like the most beginner level of Linux literacy up to how to do parallel calculations, how to compile your own software, how to do distributed calculations. And then we usually end the semester with 2 more specialized talks on varying subjects. And I should mention, we do almost always have internship positions available. We don't currently have funding for paid internships, but for unpaid internships, and typically it's not a large time commitment, like anywhere or as little as 4 hours a week, in which case you would come to the CCAST and you'd work on a project with us which would build your skills with Linux and scientific computing. Okay, so the first step to using the CCAST is to apply for an account. So to apply for an account, you need to go to our website, which is www.ccast.ndsu.edu. And on the left-hand side, there will be a navigation bar like this one. And when you click on Account Application, you'll get this to come up. So for your account application, most of it's pretty self-explanatory. Your student status, undergrad, graduate, postdoc, faculty, researcher, staff, your last name, first name, department, all that's pretty self-explanatory. Since you're in this class, if you don't already have an account, you might want to add the course number for the class. And then the really important one is you need to have your sponsor's email and sponsor's phone number, although it can be like their work phone. That doesn't matter as much. So your sponsor would be, if you are already part of a research group, that would be your PI. If you're not part of a research group, but you're in this class, you should use Dr. Killen as your sponsor. And also, because you are using Gaussian, down in the software to be used, you should mention Gaussian here. And the reason why is Gaussian has its own agreement that has to be signed, which says you won't use Gaussian for unauthorized things, such as using it for a private business. It has to be all academic usage or anything that would violate the law. So when you submit this, you'll get an email back, or you'll get an email from support saying your account's been activated. You respond to that email saying, I want to use Gaussian, and they'll send you the license form. And you just sign that and send it back to them. So for Gaussian, it's a pretty commonly used software on our system among chemists. So we have quite a bit of material already created for it. We have, or if you have the CCAST user guide, it'll list a directory location where we have a number of tutorials, including a tutorial for Gaussian, which starts at very basic knowledge level, helping you through your first couple of jobs. And then we have a second tutorial, which is more specialized or advanced calculations in Gaussian. In addition to that, we have a number of example jobs. And this is not on our user guide, but you might want to copy this location down. But in GPFS1/project CCAST test/training/examples, we have several dozen examples for a few of the most popular software on our system, which will have an example PBS script, an example job file that show you how to run different types of calculations. For Gaussian, we have several of them: frequency calculations, optimizations, relaxed potential energy scans, and DFT calculations. For how to submit these jobs, I'll give you an example. Okay, so I'm on our system now. Can everyone read this? I don't know how to make the I don't know how to make the text bigger on this one.
Anyone wants larger font?
It's okay? Okay. So typically, you want to run jobs on our system from the Scratch directory. All of the other directories on our system are backed up frequently, so they're not really suitable for high reads and writes. Our Scratch directory, however, is not, so if you're running active jobs, you want to do it from our Scratch directory. Okay, so here we just have a simple Gaussian job. We're doing an optimization calculation for some molecule.
It's like benzene.
Benzene? For benzene. So pretty simple optimization. It looks like we have implicit solvent. And then the part that is going to be different on our system versus any other system that you're running calculations on is going to be the PBS script. So PBS is our job scheduler that we use at the CCAS. So for your job to be submitted, it has to have certain attributes that are communicated to the job scheduler so that it can schedule your job and run it for you. My advice would be, especially for your first couple of jobs, is just copy an example job to use the PBS script as a template for your own jobs, because you'll have to mention the queue, which is the queue that your job will run in, which could be default, preemptible, or a condo if you have a condo queue. PBS-N is our job name. PBS-J is whether we want to have the standard output and error output from our job. And in this case, we want to combine it into a single file. And this line is extremely important. PBS-L, select men and n CPUs. So I guess the two most self-explanatory ones are our memory, or how many gigabytes of RAM we want to use for our job. And then n CPUs are how many CPUs we want to use for our job. What select is it's how many multiples of these things we want to do. So Gaussian can run as a multi-node job. So you can use multiple computers that might have a few cores on them each to run a single Gaussian job, in which case you can increase the value of select above 1, and you can use more than one node at a time. For that to happen, we do have to do I wouldn't modify anything else below here. You probably want to be in the PBSO working directory. That's the current location of the script. You have to load the Gaussian module in order to use Gaussian, or it won't be available in your environment. This field here, G16 input, you probably want to change to be whatever the name of your input file is. This example comes with a script that will set Linda for you. Linda manages the multi-node communication, and then executes Gaussian, which for Gaussian we typically use this notation here. Gaussian, caret in, input, caret out, and then the name of our output file, whatever that is. And that'll create a Gaussian Scratch directory, which you can remove after your calculation, which is what is done in this script. I guess there is one thing. With this job as it is, if you just want to submit a Gaussian job in our system, you can submit this one as is, except for one thing that you do need to change. And this is true for every job that you submit. You have to give a group ID. So PBS-W group list, and it'll always have the prefix x-ccas-prj-, and then that should be followed by the name of your project group, or it's typically your PI's last name. So I can write CB, he was my graduate advisor. And then I can write and save this file. And then the command for submitting your PBS script, which starts your job, is qsub, then the name of your PBS script. And it doesn't like my I may have been removed from that group. Try it out. Well, this would work for you. It's not working for me because I've had groups removed from my personal account. But that is the most important part. For Dr. Killens, do you know what your group name is for?
You should the last name, but I will double check before
D. Killens?
press.
Okay. Yeah, but that's the most important part for, or that's the only thing you should have to change when you're submitting a example Gaussian job. All right. So the last thing I want to mention, we are having a training session again this semester. It'll be in this room actually on Thursdays from 2 to 4 p.m. I've already given you a handout that mentions that. I also handed out a few of these, which have the correct location and time, but all these dates are from last semester. But it still makes a good bookmark. So, our first session, and I should mention, if you want to join, you should apply as soon as you can because it's in this room, which has, I think, 24 seats, and we currently have 35 people signed up. We expect it to be closer to 40. But our first session is going to be a general introduction. It'll be a lot shorter than 2 hours. It'll probably be about 40 minutes. We won't actually be doing anything on the computers. And then after that, everything will be kind of a hands-on workshop kind of thing. Basic Linux commands, how to compile MPI programs, how they communicate with each other in shared computing and distributed computing. Parallel scaling performance, which kind of builds on the last presentation. Text processing and shell scripting, which is how to get all of your mundane tasks done faster. On the back of the user guide, which I ran out of copies, I'm sorry, the last 2 pages has a lot of kind of tips, and it's kind of a cheat sheet for using the bash system. But we'll go into more depth on that in that section. And then our last 2 sections for this semester are kind of our targeted topics. So high performance computing for big data and machine learning, and then using OpenStack resources, which we'll be making available this semester, and that's virtualization, using virtual machines for research computing. For registration, just email support@ccast.ndsu.edu. Include your name, write your address again. I realize that's kind of redundant, but it helps us copy things and put it into a spreadsheet for the registration. Then your department, your status, so undergraduate, graduate, postdoc, faculty, and which sessions you want to attend if you don't plan on attending all of them. So, any questions about the CCAS?
Is it end of your talk?
Yep.
Okay, let's thank Russell. Any specific questions? Or it was bright and clear. Okay, then let's thank Russell once again. Thank you so much for finding it's possible in your schedule, and help is appreciated.
No problem.
Okay, so by now we will continue with the program of the class, and please make sure that everyone has downloaded the mobile external and started the sessions. So we are going to go over this plan, and if you have already the all needed information for the subject you are going to present, please use this time to compose your PowerPoint slides and send them to me as an email, because you are probably the most busy people in the world, and who knows if you have time after the class. So just focus on your things here. And the goal that we are going to pursue, ideally we would be doing optimization job on the CCAST cluster, but at the originally we will try to do what was missed or what we didn't have enough time on the last meeting. So we need to take a simple geometry, maybe even simpler than your previous homeworks, and try to run single point job and then optimization job, probably with the simplest possible method with force field. And we are going to do it in two ways. One way is submission a job by clicking mouse in Gauss view shell, what you have probably done before, right? And second is submitting it from the command line on this Photon server. And the next level will be doing forwarding the input file to the cluster and running it there. But if time will be not with us, it can be postponed to like next session, because right now we do not have hard computational jobs in front of us. If we miss doing optimization job with clusters, we can put it as a first task for the next chapter after presentations. Okay, I'm going to prepare something, show, declare, and invite you to do the same, and then make a circle checking if everyone feels comfortable and things work. But do not hesitate. If I'm doing something too simple for you, just focus on your PowerPoint slides.
So we need to draw a small molecule in GView and try to optimize it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to draw a molecule which is even simpler than the one you did for the homework. And the molecule I suggest is maybe I can draw it from scratch. So it is hydroxide of titanium, and it is selected with a purpose, because it is a really small molecule, but it will carry some properties of the inorganic world. So if you want to model crystals and semiconductors, it's maybe one of the simplest systems that carry these properties. So I'm clicking on the titanium, selecting oxygen, and filling these four things. And then I am doing the first thing that we stopped last time, just energy without optimization. Method, I'm selecting mechanics force field. And then it asks to save. So I can call it energy.
Sorry, job type was energy or optimization?
Energy. That's why we are starting with energy rather than going directly to optimization. Energy is quite silly. It's just finding energy for one nailed down ionic positions. And in your works, you are explaining it in a quite good language. So potential energy surfaces, energy computed at each set of ionic positions when they are fixed. So we are by doing energy calculation, single point, it means 1 point on the potential energy surface. And we are doing it because it will be instantaneous, it will be quicker than a second, just as a test example job. So it asks me if I want to submit it to Gaussian, and I will say cancel. I will cancel, and then in the command line, there is a file that I have just created. If I'm a little too quick, I will, in few seconds, I will make a circle and make sure that we are on the same page. So it tells UFF, which is force field. And if I do not want to use any of the advanced tricks that Russell was showing to us, one can submit a job from a command line. Let's check if it works. So I'm typing name of the executable, then symbol less, or caret in, and then title of the input file. And you see it demonstrates some output, and then after completion it tells normal termination, which is good. So if everything, if the input file is set up correctly and if the job is quick enough, it should generate this last line of this output. And it tries to make jokes or some quotes at the end just to entertain people. And they are coming something new every time. If you are exhausted by a lot of garbage falling on your screen, there is a way to do bigger, and then my out, just design a file where you want this output to be placed, and then it will work for the same time as it was before, but it will keep your screen empty, and after the job is done, after the job is done, it should come back with a prompt. You see it? It came back, and if I do ls minus lt, there is a my out file which will contain, if I look inside, more my out. It will have the same things that were provided to the screen, but now I can control it and slowly go over and search through some important part. the main goal of this calculation, if you're curious, is the total energy. So if you look by human eyes for the word energy, and then it will give the answer. What else? You have noticed that after we are writing name of the code, input file, output file, it waits for some time. And during this waiting time, I cannot do anything without interrupting the code. So, which is not ideal. To avoid it, I can put this symbol, Shift-7 ampersand, and then let's call it my out one. And then it goes to the background, and there is a process. So I can submit several jobs like this. You can submit several jobs like this. And if I do TOP, it will show one of these jobs is running and generating output, but it will disappear very quickly because it is quite simple job. And we see someone else is trying to use Gaussian for the research, but it shouldn't affect what we do because we are running really simple, quick jobs for education. And I think it's about to finish. So while we were talking, this my out file has already been generated, and you already know. Look, tail one. It has normal termination, and if you probably I'm speaking too quick, you don't need so much information immediately. Grab energy. Okay, let me walk around and make sure that everyone feels comfortable with this idea.
Can you please explain again my out? How did you generate it? Show the comment. So that name was the name of the file.
Just a second. Which? So you're not required to remember everything what Russell was telling to you, but you approximately remember that he was telling about concept of PBS job scheduler and a lot of parameters, both related to computation and related to details of organization of the IT facility. And this is done, one is doing it for heavy computations, when you have like thousands of atoms or like hundreds. If you do this couple of atoms calculations for simple demonstration, we do not need a lot of power, and we can do it with a little box. We are doing halfway. We are not doing mouse operated, but we are not doing cluster. We are doing command line single processor job, or we can run it on multiple cores that are available on this box. So the Gauss view, which you are opening, and it has this clickable things when you can draw molecules, edit it. It is a shell. It is not a computational chemistry code program itself. It's only like a little toolbox to create molecules, draw molecules, and analyze outcomes of the calculation. The code that solves Schrödinger equation, so to say, is this Gaussian, which is stored on this computer at this path. And if you type G09, it calls to this path. And for the code one needs to provide input parameters, because how does the code knows which molecule to calculate? It's like powerful code, but how does it know which of the files to calculate? If you have created, or if I have created more than one input file in one directory, which of them there is more than one models of molecules in the same directory? Which of them needs to be the program needs to focus on? So I put this symbol less and then name of the input file.
This file generated by GB, right?
Yes, exactly. I was going to play kindergarten and ask, do you remember where this file coming from? You're creating this file when you do GV, and when you click submit job, it asks, do you really want to submit a job, or you want just to save input file? And you say, yes, I want just save input file, but I do not want to submit the job. Because such format of command line submission is much more standard and general and productive. Because when you are with Gauss view, your hand is shaking, you do not see, you cannot analyze many information in a graphical form, but in the command line you can submit like 1,000 jobs and wait until they are complete. And you do not need to stay logged into the system. You can submit a job, log out and go to the restaurant, or just go to vacations or job. Come after a month and log in and check if job is complete. So symbol less means funnel, input this file into this code. Symbol bigger means take this code plus this file, whatever they generate together, and funnel it into the output file. The symbol ampersand means like put this process into the background. Let me type other commands while the system is solving this problem. Make sense? Okay.
Can you please show the my file
Yes.
that contains such information?
Output file or input file?
Input file.
Okay. More.
No, I still didn't get why you generate my file, my out, because you already have the output, right?
No.
Sound.
No. Index site energy uff.com. So it doesn't have keyword of optimization. It shows only the method, which means single point. If you are doing a lot of jobs, in a lot of productive jobs, it could be reasonable to call your output file in the same way as input file, like TIO for energy .log. And in some systems, this standard type of the output file is maintained. Whatever is generated by Gaussian is forwarded to the to such file. But it is not written in stone. You are owner, you are master of anything you are doing in your directory, and you can call output file any way you like. Yes?
So in this input file, the first few lines are the coordinates I did.
First couple of lines are tasks, what needs to be done. Then there is a charge and multiplicity. And then there are coordinates. And here they are used in a little bit crazy format, XYZ and type of the atoms. But typically we use just Cartesian coordinates. And later, here is the connectivity information, which is important for force field, but later when we will go to true first principles calculations, information about bond distances will be not important. Do you let me go on a circle? Was it enough? Yes, no?
And where we will get the energy information in the .log file?
The goal of this little example, of this calculation as it has been set up, is to obtain energy, right? And outcome of the running of the code is stored in a file. Standard naming for the output file is blah, blah, whatever specifics of the molecule .log. But you are free to call it some other way if you like to. Oh, okay. You didn't do this shift 7 Anderson or it be another or just looking which processes are wrong. And now you see last file is this can be cool. Last file is the you can scroll through and see the energy. Look for the word energy inside this code. Okay? Those who are successfully completed this thing may try to go in two directions. In one direction. Set up a job for optimizing. Select optimization, name the input file in a different way, and submit and check what happens. let me make an. It should be tetrahedral. I'll tell something to everyone. Do not worry, I do not have much of chemical background, but let me tell some brief things. So, if anyone wants, who has chemical background? 1, 2. Did you have some elements of inorganic chemistry? So, if you have the titanium ion not in the zero oxidation, but it has lost 3 electrons, or it has lost 4 electrons, what would be the preferred coordination with outside molecules like oxygen or nitrogen? 6. Well, a good guess will be either 6 or 4, right? But which one would be preferred, or 6 or 4? 4. So for 4 plus, it will be 4 coordinated tetrahedral. Yeah. And for 3 plus, it will be octahedral, but then it will not coordinate to, it will not form the hydroxide, because the molecule that we are drawing is neutral. So the titanium is losing 4 electrons, and each of the oxygen is getting one electron. So in average, the molecule is neutral, right? And if we would like to do the same for 3 plus, then one can and one needs a neutral molecule. Then one can put OH group only on the 3 tails, and other 3 should be compensated by something else. So it is also possible, but it is not ideal for the first start. If you really want to do octahedral, it should be like at least half of them should be waters, H2O. Or one needs to, if one wants to have it something, one needs to put a charge aside. So let's postpone it for the future and focus on the simplest one, is for we are not submitting yes. It is okay to save the password, because when you log out of this terminal, it will be wiped. Russell's issues. Yeah, but it will not work here. It will work for the process.
So, an example of the first part of that would be function and it's going to be pieces.
No, do not know that. You have recordings, so something important. So the space here is
Not yet, but totally I know what should be doing. It shouldn't be difficult. There is a container. We should know how much water we can put in this container. For instance, 7 liter. Then we put, we know the volume of the water. We fill the container with the aggregate, measure the weight, then full with the water, measure the weight, the difference. I get confused, but totally it's the difference of the dry weight divided by volume is the specific value, something like that.
Yes, and then
But just need to lab tonight to check if the container is available.
yeah, it works. You learn one.
Yes.
And then that is it.
Yes, for this session. Next session they will go further for the aggregate.
So we just measure the gravity.
Right.
Specific
The specific gravity this time.
We only have for
You know, handle is not black.
When successfully try to optimize.
Oh, we need to print handle very serious? What should we do to No, because we also Thursday and Tuesday, so it should be 300.
There was also those in 6 but basically jobs it doesn't work. I'll take a question and just
Is it possible or it's in the email?
Caution is cashier comes is overflowing and then this one is that I will use some for this.
This is handout?
This one is I'm just reading the
There's no consider.
Which is also considered
It's just not Oh, it's kind of this. Yeah, this is the procedure. Yeah. So, tomorrow we just pull the specific parameters without any. Right. One. To do that, we will be material. Since we know all the parameters. So we're doing 5 ambience from cos angles. No, just cos angles. Why? You just need to know how to measure the specific just cos square. What is this, Joe? So if you find a better handout in the internet, it's more safe and print the output students.
simple structure, very simple geometry, simple
And we should print for each student, for each group.
First section and second section. You mean each section
No. No, how to print handout. You need to print for all the students.
two videos, right? One.
So only the students 40 for you, 40 for me, 80 pages. Like you go to gym, then come up to office. You want to go to gym tonight?
Thank you. So, further this founder who originally went into this. Alright, so it's easier to type. So you don't have to type in type button.
Or make it come for everyone.
Oh, okay.
If what we're doing it looks like a kindergarten, you can keep going and optimize molecules that we did for previous homework. Because for some help is needed, for some it looks simple. So, and there is a little comment about the names. So what we do here is not renaming of this file. It's if you would put just Linux command cp, one file name, space, another file name, it will be renaming. Here is not renaming, it's input and output. If you look inside these files, if you do more and look inside the files, they will be drastically different. One is input, it communicates only geometry and task, what we need to do with this geometry, this molecule. And output, we are interested in energy only, but it tells a lot of other valuable things. And the specifics of this naming is our free rules, just free will, free choice of humans. We can request any name for the output. If I am not in a good mood to type detail specific, I can call it something like this. But it is just my decision as a human.
So we use this function. Alright, thank you.
I'm myself.
And you want to So this will be a. This is the geometry that you created. And this is just
It sounds like you understanding what you're doing, right? Is there any help from the input or I think you probably should.
Okay, so you check it. So this is so you go. Do you know how to take this? Here is like the how do you follow it? And then you press and then you get back to also I can practice this one word. This is the file, the other file is put right there.
Parse, find any line contains the story.
Okay, from the output file.
You draw because
So I run a finish optimization. For instance, this is the optimized configuration. I still have problem with my output. Why do you want to generate the file type output?
.lob?
Yeah.
There is no specific reason. It is everything else works. It is the only question. Okay, then I'll probably show something to everyone.
I know this is like this always this is like so this is how the professional
So let me attract your attention for a quick time. So after you have obtained the output of your job in the command line, you can fight for a glory of big Linux expert and read everything in a command line. But if it is more comfortable for you to analyze output with a shell, you are free to do it. So Gauss view shell is able to read the output file, and in some situations it can be beneficial. So right now I do not see my output file here, but if I select Gaussian output file .log, it will, just a second, see, it was not showing, but if I copy this my out file into my out.log, and then I'm going to Gaussian. It does see this file in the list, and I can just click on it and open it. So if I wasn't optimizing geometry is not changing, but we will do it very soon. If I click results and summary, it will show the energy. Basically the same thing we did before without command line. I know it looks a little bit crazy. We got the same thing as we did with a couple of clicks, but if we need to do something productive with many jobs or large files, this procedure of converting from graphical form into text, running job and then reading back into graphical is reasonable. So the next thing is to do optimization, and I wasn't using this broom, so I do want to Gaussian calculation setup, and here job tab I'm putting optimization. The only thing I'm changing from energy to optimization, and then repeating the same steps. So instead of energy I can call it optimize or whatever, OPT. Save. I decline to submit it to Gaussian in this standard way, in this graphical way, and I'm typing G09 and then typing this new job. OPT. So although it is my personal freedom to know my files as I wish, but it is just logical to keep consistent name for the input and output, so they differ only by extension, otherwise it will be a big mess. There is one more little announcement that right now today we do not need, but as we go further and further through the course, and especially when we stop using Gaussian and go to a different software, there is a practice, there is a possible way of organizing your data as follows. For each new job, create a new directory. You do not need immediately to practice it, but think about it. When you will go to many jobs with bigger files and with different software, different from Gaussian, it will be an important thing, and when it will be time I will remind you. So right now Gaussian allows to have different names, unique names for the input. There will be different software that will have the same generic name for the input, and then one will be mandated to open a new directory for each job. So therefore we are learning how to open new directories, how to navigate through them. It's just a little heads up. We will need it in about months from now. But so now I'm so reckless that I submit job without looking inside, although it's a good style to look on a file. And the optimization job typically takes longer, maybe like 50 times longer than single point. So if I look inside, in addition to name of the method, it added a keyword opt, which means the procedure that we were practicing yesterday in class. Finding gradient, moving atoms, finding new gradient, moving atoms a little bit more until convergence is achieved. And right now I hope that the job is running under this process name 39531. So since there are so many of us, and each of us can submit several jobs, each job is assigned unique ID. And the job that I just submitted has this ID, and this job created subsequently another one that is being active and works for so many seconds. So while I was preparing to tell something interesting, the job has been already completed, but there are several ways to track, to monitor how job is going. And when we will come to longer jobs, I will cover it once again. So by now it looks that this job has been completed, and it does have the word normal termination. So what is the need and benefit of this optimization job? So if I measure the distances and angles which is probably better to do in JMO. After the optimization job has been done, the angles and distances will look differently. Right now we started from something quite reasonable, and we do not see it by human eye. But if I do the same task once again with intentionally ugly structure, the optimization should fix it. And optimization is reliable. Like the broom, this broomstick clean operation is something that one cannot believe in and use. If I intentionally make the structure ugly and So this command watch allows to repeat a certain command that one puts inside this apostrophes again and again. And now we see the last part of the output file as program develops. Because it's very natural for humans to be nervous and impatient, it gives a little better vision to see how far the code has progressed, and if we are close to completion. So when the job will be ended, it should give the word normal termination. And since I have intentionally did something ugly, it takes a little bit longer to go out of troubles. So when you see this grad, it means it computes gradient. It makes one more step. Please give a little sign if you didn't submit any of the optimization jobs yet. Please give sign if you have successfully submitted and at least one not total and not single point, but optimization. So basically everyone, right? Optimization, yes, yes. So what I'm telling you is just entertainment. You already did it. Okay. So yeah, normal termination. And now if I am going into the Gaussian, opening this log file, you see it creates reasonable geometry back. So it started from something ugly and it generates something reasonable. And basically, if you feel comfortable doing this procedure, your door to the rest of the course and more interesting things is open. So any research typically starts from optimizing geometry with one or another method. Because if geometry is wrong, the characterization will be wrong as well. If one, okay, now I know what I want to do. PDB. So I'm saving initial and final geometry before and after optimization in the PDB format. And with this, what I can do is to So one of the simplest things that your research projects may require and that you can do right now, like if you really need data for some publication and you do not want to complete the course, there is a little thing that you can already do to measure the parameters of geometry of your molecules that came out of the optimization and report them. Because in some examples it has scientific value, like the bond distance or angles. And it is quite standard procedure. So one can do it either by clicking on pairs of atoms, on pairs of atoms in Gauss view and creating these records, or if we using JMO, one can visualize these distances simultaneously. And for example, one can create a figure like this and show the interatomic distances before and after optimization. Yes?
So how did you convert the output Gaussian files into PDB files? Did you use OpenBabel or something like that?
One can use OpenBabel. It is a very smart way, but I went through a silly way. If you noticed,
So how did you do that?
So I click on the geometry that I need and put here file, save, and create the output type PDB.
Oh,
Okay?
yeah.
So it's maybe a little bit quicker than Babel. So if some of the processes that you have started doesn't satisfy you, you can kill it. Right? You type kill -9 and then number of the process. But please do not misuse it and do not kill processes that were created by your classmates. So maybe in 2 weeks from now, one of the homework may contain a suggestion to measure like distances in certain molecules. Is everything we did clear? No focus needed. Please, yes, sir.
So I do maybe 85%. So the geometry optimization is needed for mostly all types of polygons. Does it work for the crystal structures?
If you are dealing with crystals, you are a happy man. You do not need optimization. Whoever needs crystals in the research? And okay, good. And no one selected Vesta. It is one of the subjects in the list. So this basically means crystals.
Yeah.
If do you have time tomorrow between 11 and 12?
Yeah.
Yes, you can just create a couple of slides and explain. how
Oh, okay.
So then I have the following plan. If please work on preparing your slides. If someone needs to leave, you're free to leave. And if you still have curiosity and your slides are easy to prepare, I can do two things. Start preparing of the job optimization on the CCAST cluster. It will need me a couple of minutes to set it up to show, not right away. And also I can show where does one get crystalline structures, and basically, even without Vesta software, Gauss View can read them. If you are looking into we do not have examples right now. I need to download them from the web. But the crystallographic information files .cif, for those of you who do research about crystals, there are X-ray crystallography that allows to measure positions of each atom, and these .cif files can be directly read into computational chemistry software. If you deal with crystals, then atomic position of each atom is known and you do not need optimization. So those who deal with crystals are lucky people. And
So Gauss View can read the .cf.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
So I can export .cf files from any software like Materials Studio and feed it into the Gauss View, right?
Be careful because Gaussian is not efficient in describing crystals. One will need to run different software that we will cover. We will start in a month from now. But if you just need to watch how the crystal looks like, Gauss View will help. So I will forward this to
I'm going to go.
yeah.
And one more question. When tomorrow about are we going to finish likely?
Your presentation will be the first, so you will be done like 11:10. After 11, you will be done, and
Okay.
you may leave.
Right. So hopefully I won't have to.
Okay. I am preparing to forward you the slides from this presentation of Russell.
So we finish this session?
Formal, important part is finished. If you have something important, feel free to depart. And I am going to prepare the optimization on CCAST, but it will take a couple of minutes. If you really need to go, do not worry. It will be recorded, and we will start from it next week anyway. So the main goal is to complete presentations for tomorrow. if anyone has questions about presentations, please do not hesitate to ask. My goal will be to answer them immediately.
Okay, and we need to send you the slides to.
Slides before midnight today.
I already sent it.
Oh, thank you. I'm was not checking.
Okay, thank you.
Is everyone in this list? Do I miss anyone? If you do not see your name, let me know. Good. Okay. Yes.
I have a question about Gmail. So, actually, features of Gmail, integrations, all these services, but then it's something that can just be viewed, right? It's not something that can
Just focus on some basic features of Gmail, like measuring distance angles. Yes, and also Gmail.
make crystals with Gmail.
If you show advanced features, it will be great. But you can show how to erase atom or how to add atom.
I have some erase atoms.
Yeah.
Okay, then. Maybe that's okay. All right, thank you.
Oh. A little announcement I have forgotten about, but please consider, it is not mandatory, but please consider this time to open accounts on CCAST so that you will be able to run it. I do not have super user privileges there, so I cannot open accounts for you. You need to do it as Russell suggested. And for you will need accounts on NERSC supercomputer, and it needs some minimal information like which college and if not U.S. citizen, which country, because NERSC is Department of Energy student, they want for security reasons this information. So either submit application there, or if you delegate this right to me, I will need this information. Not urgent, just giving a heads up.
But for CCAS, for example, if I already have an account from like another class,
Yeah, that's fine.
it's still it's not.
It should work. It should work. But you may check if you can log in, and if it